DNC Secretary.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Is Mr. Shekhar.
Thank you.
Ready. Sir. அகில இந்திய காங்கிரஸ் செய்தி தொடர்பாளர் முன்னாள் மக்களவை காங்கிரஸ் உறுப்பினர் சந்தீப் தீக்ஷித் அவர்கள் இன்றைக்கு பத்திரிகையாளர்களை சந்திப்பதற்காக அகில இந்திய காங்கிரஸ் கமிட்டியால் அனுப்பப்பட்டிருக்கிறார். இவர் முன்னாள் முதலமைச்சர், டெல்லி மாநில முதலமைச்சர், 3 முறை முதலமைச்சராக இருந்த, தொடர்ந்து 15 ஆண்டுகள் முதலமைச்சராக இருந்து சாதனை படைத்த, 3 தேர்தலில் வெற்றி பெற்ற, அதிக ஆண்டுகள் ஒரு பெண் முதலமைச்சர் இருந்தார் என்றால் அது ஷீலா தீக்ஷித் தான். அவருடைய மகன் இன்னைக்கு சந்தீப் தீக்ஷித் அவர்கள் இங்கே வருகை வந்திருக்கார். தமிழ்நாடு காங்கிரஸ் சார்பாக அவரை நான் வரவேற்கிறேன்.
Thank you. My name is Sandeep Dixit. I am a spokesman of the All India Congress Committee. Unfortunately, I can't speak Tamil, so I'll restrict myself to addressing all of you in English. And I thank Tamil Nadu Congress Committee and my colleagues here and all the members of the media and press for coming today. The main purpose of today's press conference is something that the Congress has been raising for the past 10 days or so. And all of you also must have seen the great demonstration Tamil Nadu Congress and in Chennai and our party across India in various state capitals held yesterday with in response to the revelations that the Hindenburg report has made. So I'll raise the pertinent points that are important in the 2 reports that Hindenburg brought out, and what is it that the Congress and with us many of the other opposition parties of the India Alliance are raising today. About 8-10 months ago, Hindenburg, which is a research firm or a research consulting firm in the United States and also does some work in share capital and all, they came up with a report which stated that the astronomical and unprecedented rise in the share of Adani Industries is not necessarily related to the strength of Adani Industries or any future prospects of Adani Industries. And this is also something that many people in India involved in stock markets used to continuously wonder as to what is it with the Adanis that is leading to such astronomical rises. What the Hindenburg report brought out or did not bring out at that point of time, but certain things they very clearly pointed out, and they made some links that there are firms in India which are importing material into India, over-invoicing them. For example, some company buys a machine for 100 rupees in, say, Dubai or in Beijing. When they land in India, they are billed at 150 rupees. So overbilling is happening, over-invoicing is happening, and the amount of money that Adani, for buying those machines, sells to its own related companies, a large number of companies that were there all over the world, that money is kind of over-invoicing, is going out of India. And from there, it is going into large number of offshore shell companies. Interestingly, almost all of them are registered in these little places which we call tax havens, Bahamas and various islands and all. I don't even know their names. If you remember many, many years ago, if anybody used to have a Swiss bank account, we used to be very, very suspicious of that. So these are the new Swiss bank kind of units that have come up all over the world. And then money would be invested back from there to India. So Hindenburg alleged that money is being siphoned off, which is being reinvested in Adani firms, and Adani shares are going up. Congress raised a hue and cry all over India. We said that this is very, very dangerous for Indian economy. Such a large corporation like Adani, if it's really built its share capital on something that is not really there, just a balloon, it will be very, very dangerous for India's economy. The Supreme Court took cognizance of this and instituted inquiries into this. They also instituted an inquiry under the Supreme Court. At that time also we had pointed out that the constitution of the committee itself raises some doubts, because one of the members of the committee had been an old board member of Adani's and another one was an old lawyer of Adani's. Nevertheless, even that report, when it came out, people say that they gave a clean chit to Adani, but they did not really give a clean chit to Adani. And they said that there are these 12 or 13 corporations which are investing money in India. We are not able to find out who they are. And unless investigations are complete, we will not be able to give a clean chit to anybody. Anyway, all these negotiations went on. Just 4-5 days ago, something new has come up with Hindenburg that has really changed the whole situation. And here they focused directly on the SEBI chairperson, Mrs. Madhavi Puri Buch. She is the first private sector individual to become chairman or chairperson of SEBI. She was a private investor herself, and what she did in her business life is completely up to her. She and her husband have both been very successful corporate people and maybe investors. What they did is not of our concern. But what is of our concern is that when you change the pattern of some organization so important as SEBI, India's 5th or 6th largest stock exchange in the world, I think we are handling something up in the upwards of 10 to 12 lakh crore, investing in about 58,000 companies. Share is not something that only the rich invest in today. Normal middle class people, poor people, they all either put in money in shares or in mutual funds. So it's something that every Indian aspires to earn some money from. And SEBI is really the only watchdog that is there between large corporations and their small shareholders across India. And therefore, anybody looking after SEBI is somebody who should have the trust of every Indian, especially our small investors and our poor people, those who look at stock exchange to earn some money. A private sector person is brought in. There is no discussion as to why she is brought in. We don't really know why a change like this happens, because when you are bringing in somebody from outside into a regulatory agency, and a regulatory agency of such great importance, that is not only looking after the interests of Indians, but internationally what SEBI does and how investments take place in India makes a background as to why people internationally should invest in India. It becomes important that their capability and integrity are beyond any doubt. But unfortunately, with the Modi government, even in important institutions, no debates take place. You yourself saw that just 3-4 days ago, because they finally found that they are not getting votes anymore and the poor and the backward in India have started doubting the BJP, they took back their lateral entry system. But Madhavi Puri Buch is probably one of the first people who took advantage of the lateral entry system and became chairperson of SEBI. Now, in the second report that Hindenburg brings out, they started showing that all the papers that were sent to the Supreme Court committee and the inquiries were all sent by SEBI. SEBI chairperson in this whole while was Madhavi Puri Buch, and they showed that Mrs. Buch and her husband, Mr. Dhaval, both have had financial interests with various Adani companies. What is right, what is wrong, I'm not going to go into that right now. This is not the place. I'm not a court, I'm not a judge, I'm not an investigator. But they showed that Mrs. Madhavi Buch and her husband have also invested in various these dark hold foreign companies. First of all, my very first question comes that Indians and all our regulatory agencies, we have great doubts over these offshore companies where nobody knows who's investing, who's putting in Bahamas or in Maldives or wherever these places are. And Mrs. Buch had put in almost 3 or 4 crores of her money into some corporation in these islands. Now, a SEBI chairperson who finds it not a problem to invest in these dark corners of the world, can somebody like that be trusted to take care of SEBI? I think that's a question mark by itself. It puts a doubt on the very selection process. But it was found that through the sum of these, she had invested in some companies that had some relationship with the Adanis. It also came up interestingly over a period of time that certain people connected to Advani were also looking after some of these corporations. And therefore, Hindenburg said that can she really be trusted? And can an inquiry in which all the papers, all the evidence was given by SEBI, and while she was in charge of that, can that be trusted? Unfortunately, rather than addressing this allegation seriously, I'm not saying whether there's any merit to it or not, SEBI suddenly comes up to the defense of its chairperson, takes out a unnamed document and says, we reject all charges. Question is, if for such an important inquiry that is about Adani, by an organization as important as SEBI, if serious allegations are made, I think the allegation should have been addressed carefully. They were not. None of the points raised in the allegation were addressed, and they tried to dismiss Hindenburg itself, which is why the Congress has taken it up and said that it is very important that it is seen that inquiries are held which are clear and conscious. It was also some issue was mentioned that whenever issues like this came up, Mrs. Madhavi Buch recused herself. Nowhere was it said that when Adani's issues came up, did she recuse herself or not. So in this whole game, it suddenly started appearing that either Mrs. Buch influenced the papers going, or the government influenced her, or there is something which is not correct. Something very, very dark and dangerous is happening. And it can only be cleared if an impartial inquiry takes place. Again, as I said, perhaps she is completely innocent, perhaps she is not. But then what is the competent authority? And it is strange that SEBI decides to give itself a clean chit. Nowhere in the world, if serious allegations are made, can the person or the organization on which allegations are made give Madhavi ji is refusing to resign, so she will remain chairperson of an organization. And everybody in India knows that in the way Indian government systems work, the chief of the organization dictates and directs, directly or indirectly, everything that an organization does. It is very easy to say that you recuse yourself, you don't attend that particular meeting, but we all know, and especially in the case of SEBI, ask anybody who's been involved in SEBI or who's been involved in this share market system, that while SEBI has a board of 3 or 4 or 5 people, the chairperson of SEBI is the most important person who runs and dictates everything that a SEBI does. What is the advantage of the Joint Parliamentary Committee? What we also want to know is not only what happened in paper, but what happened informally in SEBI. Did Madhavi Buch as chairman try to protect Adani or her own investments in that? Did the government try to put some influence on her? And I'm saying if these allegations are true or untrue, only when in an organization the FM can be called or Mrs. Buch can be called or other people can be called and discussed and told about or asked about issues far beyond the legality, can the truth come out, and that can only be done by the Joint Parliamentary Committee or the JPC. And that is why we are demanding a JPC. And to just illustrate finally some of the points as to why this is something in which we are also now looking at the SEBI chairperson and her activities. Let me give one example and then I will close the press conference and request you for your questions. Everybody said that Mrs. Buch and others were private people. They made certain investments in Singapore, and therefore can we really question that? Question is not that. Question is there is something called conflict of interest and something called accountability. If you've done certain investments and now you become chairman of a board, you has to be complete and open accessibility and accountability into your accounts. Also, something called conflict of interest. In case you had any dealings with organizations, then can you be trusted if an inquiry is happening with regard to that organization? She should have made it very clear even then that I am not a competent person to govern. It's like, I don't know what in Tamil, what do you call your SHO? But suppose there is an allegation on the SHO about a heinous crime. An investigation is happening under the SHO in their Thana. Do you think a clean investigation will take place if the SHO remains to run that Thana? It's as simple an argument as that. And let me give you an example about some of the things that put a question mark on the chairperson. Her husband, Mr. Dhaval, was a very, very, apparently a very successful person in Unilever. Fair enough, and we give him credit. He retired some time back, and then he joined Blackstone, I'm forgetting the name, I think Blackstone or something, a private investment company that puts money into real estates. And they've claimed that he's done that because he's competent, no problem, you continue to do that. However, once Mrs. Butch becomes chairperson of SEBI, SEBI starts giving all kinds of allowances to the industry in which Blackstone is involved. Suddenly, and you know in India how difficult it is to get permissions. All of you are journalists, all of us are people. Even to get a small permission by this government can take 6 months, 1 month, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. It's a continuous process. And not only do they get that, an interesting thing happens. Mrs. Butch makes it much more lenient and in fact allows, in the rule allows that offshore companies which are registered in these shady islands, they can invest money in India and no law can force them to reveal to us who their owners are. I'll just show this point to you. You know our Income Tax Act. If you get a payment above 20,000 rupees, you cannot receive it in cash. Even if you receive it in cash, even if somebody has given you 5,000 rupees, you have to put it in your income tax account. And they have to know who that person is or who that company is. What SEBI is saying is that if an offshore company in some fancy island invests 5,000 crores in India, we have no right to find out who has sent in that money. 5,000 rupees you get in income tax, you have to show where that money comes from and what it comes from. 5,000 crores, 2,000 crores, 10,000 crores can come from an offshore account and you don't have the right to even come to know where that money is. Now these are very, very dangerous laws and SEBI has allowed some of these things to happen. So I'm saying that the activities of the SEBI chairperson have suddenly become very, very suspicious and therefore first, she must be removed from her position and second, JPC should happen. And the third thing that puts a doubt on Mrs. Butch herself is that it is very clear in SEBI that anybody working in SEBI, apart from SEBI, cannot be involved in any other business or any other consulting or any other activity apart from working in SEBI. That is a condition of SEBI. Now, Mrs. Madhavi Butch, before she became SEBI chairperson and before she became a member, was running 2 or 3 private consulting firms, one Agora, which is registered in Singapore and in Delhi, and one more firm. And in the one that is registered in India, she was owning 99% of its shares. She put in her report that after she became chairperson, no activity took place in these private firms. That means her firm became dead. She did not do any consulting work. Therefore, she did not earn any money from this after that. However, later on it came out that her husband was doing consultancy under the name of Agora and has earned almost 3.7 crores out of that. Now, if it's a company owned by you in which 99% of the shares are yours, under what logic can you tell us that if your company earns 3.7 crores out of consultancy, therefore you are not doing any work? Her own salary, I think, would not be more than 50 to 60 lakhs. And you are earning 3.5 crores from another consulting firm. So this also proves that probably Madhavi Puri Butch may not know the rectitude and the moral stand that we in India expect people of our regulatory institutions to hold. So I think in that case, there is a lot of doubt on whether she really fairly conducted herself or not. And I think the only way to clear her name, clear the name of SEBI, and put people's interest back in India's investment organization would be to hold the JPC and clarify the whole issue. Thank you very much. Any questions? I'll just send it.
print it out. Utthav, no question. Please say do.
Thank you. Thank you. Come, sir.